Hey YouTube, this is Sean with Griffin RC Planes. I hope everybody had a good weekend. Maybe you were able to get out and fly a little bit. I flew for a few hours the other day. I took the camera with me and hopefully I got the planes on camera this time. In this video we're going to mount the motor to the Uproar here. And I'll show you how I go about drilling the holes in the firewall. Maybe that'll help some of you out. Maybe it'll give somebody a little entertainment. Who knows what. But look here, I completely understand that it takes a while for certain things to happen, right? And I've been doing this YouTube experiment for, I don't know, 3 months or so now, and I'd have to say the subscribers right now are awesome, dedicated. But then I discovered all the analytics part of it, and in the past 2 days 4,120 different people between the ages of 19 and 65 have watched my videos, and 80% of them have watched all of them from the beginning to the end, but only 2% have subscribed and 1% of those have unsubscribed. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong, or I don't know if that's the mathematical formula. You know, you get 1 out of every 4,000 or something. But look here, let's change things a little bit. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll give this jet to somebody, and I'll mail it right to you. It's never been out of the box. It's brand new. And then for the first 100 subscribers, that's including you guys right now, I'll do something for you. So we'll do a drawing of something for the first 100, and at 1,000 I'll give this plane to somebody. So please click that like and subscribe and share it with your friends. Let's get on with mounting this motor.
Alrighty there guys, it is time to install the brushless motor for our Uproar version 2. Now, to help you guys select your brushless motor, this is how I did it my very first time. I was clueless. I didn't know what to do. I spent who knows how long trying to figure things out. In the manual, it'll give you a recommendation. And of course, they're going to recommend their own product, and it's most likely going to cost more money than what it really should, unless that's just what you want to do. But they recommend this right here, a 4250 800 rimfire 0.32 brushless outrunner motor, and it gives a part number. The 4250 is the size of the motor. That's 42 millimeters wide and 50 millimeters tall. So whenever you hear somebody, they say they have a, you know, a 3240 or a 4020 or whatever, a 5050, they're talking about the size of the motor. So 4250 800 kV, that stands for RPMs per volt. The exact mathematical formula I couldn't tell you, but for simple terms, let's just call it 800 RPMs, and they recommend a 4S battery, which is the 14.8 volt. So you could multiply the 14.8 by the 800 and come up with this. And or if you're going to use a 3S battery at 11.1 volt, you could do the 11.1 times the 800. But that's not the formula, but that can give you an idea how fast the propeller will spin on what battery. Obviously, the bigger battery, it'll spin faster. Okay. So they recommend 4250 800, and they also call that a 0.32 size. I'm not all that familiar with engines that ran on nitro or glow, but the size engine would be, you know, they had a 30 size or a 40 size or a 60 size engine. So this motor is equivalent to a 0.32 size glow engine. All right. And then they recommend a 13/8 propeller to a 14.7. If you were using the 11.1 volt battery, you would go with the bigger propeller, because if you use the 4S battery, it's going to spin much faster. So you would go down a size in a propeller. You know, you got to kind of think of tires on a car or your bicycle or lawnmower, whatever, how fast they're turning. You know, if you're going 2 miles an hour, is the wheel just turning like this? And the faster you're going, you know, and you got to kind of think about your power in that rate. You know, if you have this battery, a 3S battery, and it's spinning the propeller this big or like this, and then you put a 4S battery, the 14.8 volt, and then it spins so much faster, it doesn't need to spin that big of a propeller still. It can go down a size of the propeller and still have more. It might take you a little bit to kind of learn all that. It did me too. It doesn't make sense to go that way, but if you go with the bigger battery, go down a size in a propeller. So that's what they recommend, 4250, 800. So what is that? Well, then you can go to a website and you can try to find that motor. Well, and that'll teach you the size if you didn't, you know, just catch it right now. But you can see here, product length, 51 millimeters. Product diameter, 43 millimeters. Remember, they said 4250. You know, so they rounded up by 1 millimeter, or rounded down rather, for the in the instruction manual. And that's common. This is a 4250. And it's probably, you know, 39 by 49 or something. And then to give you an idea of how much the motor weighs, they're claiming it weighs 7 ounces. All right. And then if you want to figure out your watts and your max burst and your max voltage you can use, 11.1 to 14.8. It tells you what size connector goes on the wire, 4 millimeter wire. You know, when you're plugging your batteries up, you can think about the thickness of the wire. And then the most important part here is it says the application: sport airplanes up to 6.5 pounds, 3D airplanes up to 4 pounds. So now that gives you an idea. Now that gives you an idea of what this motor is capable of doing. So the motor they recommended is this size and it weighs this much, and their motor is capable of flying a 6.5, you know, just a sport plane, or a 3D plane of 4 pounds. So now you have an idea what to shop for. All right. I always talk about my 300 planes, and that's because I've had a few. So I end up with extra pieces. And this is a motor I've rebuilt. I replaced the bearings in it, so it's as good as new. And it happens to be a 4250, but a 910 kV. So this motor is going to spin faster than the one recommended. So what do you do when it's spinning faster? With voltage or by the kV of the motor, put a smaller propeller on it and get it down to where, you know, you need it to be. Well, they said their product weighs 7 ounces. So now we're shopping for a motor, right? Let's weigh this one and see what we come up with. Now this one's got the prop adapter, 4 bolts holding it on. It has the cross motor mount and 4 screws holding it on. So you got to take that out of this equation in your head. I'm going to hit the right button. All right. 9.7 ounces minus all this stuff. And here is a prop adapter and a mount, and that's 1 ounce. So we had 9.7 minus the 1 in my hand takes it to 8.7. These 8 screws are probably the 0.7, you know. So our setup may weigh 1 ounce more. No big deal. We're within reason. If the motor you chose or what you're shopping for came out to be 5 ounces heavier, then it's way too big. Or if it was 3 ounces light, it's way too small. So that can kind of give you an idea how you go about selecting a motor and shopping for it. Well, now that we got that out of the way, let's mount this thing and let's see how we do it. All right, mounting the cross mount to the front of the plane. In the directions, it says to drill out the crosses they have right here. Well, these are for the motor that they recommend, okay? So make sure the cross mount you are using either fits what they already have marked, or you need to make some new marks. The one we're using does not match those. So we're going to scribe a few lines in it and then figure out the center point for our cross. The cross mounts, or the X marks the spots that they provided. If you bought their motor and their motor mount, they are centered. The mount we're using, the holes are just a little farther apart. So take a straight edge of some sort and a pin and try to make a line going right down. I might have to do this again off camera. Can you guys see that right there? The mark they gave us is right here for electric. This one up top and this one up top is for the glow engine. And I think this one was for throttle linkage if you were using a glow engine, because you'd have a servo and a push rod coming out for the motor. But these inside holes are for the electric, and the bigger ones are for a glow. We've only done one line so far, but maybe you can see how right there is where their X was, and then ours will go up. So we'll make another mark. I'm trying to line it right up on what they got there. Oh, yeah. Shh, quiet, concentrate. And you can see now we have a bigger X that we can try to look for our ink marker right through the center here. And then that'll center our markup. And I'm just going to verify all this. I'll be right back. All right, off camera real quick, I fixed my light. I made sure that these lines were perfectly straight and darkened them up a little bit. Just was a little easier without the camera dangling around my neck. All right, in the instructions it says to drill the first hole, a 1/16 inch pilot hole through the X mark, then enlarge the hole to 5/32. And they say that because the hardware they supplied, that's what size the bolts are. Okay. Now, drill bits do have the size of the bit stamped on it. You're going to need a magnifying glass or some fantastic vision, and it's normally right down the side, just depending on the bit. They will be stamped on there somewhere. Okay, or if you have a micrometer, you can measure the bolt you're dealing with, and then you can try and match up a drill bit that way. These micrometers are not accurate unless you want to spend $1,000 on them or something. I mean, they'll be accurate to the hair, put it that way. But the bolt, about 155. Yeah, and it's accurate there. If we did it again, it wouldn't read right. So anyways, so that's how you can select a drill bit if you can't read the writing that's stamped on there. This particular situation, it really doesn't matter what kind of bit you get. So, some will say steel or wood, and you can use one for metal and one for wood through here. And I've got the smaller one already in the drill. The next thing we're going to do is line our X mount up on these crosses we made. So the holes where the bolt is going to go, if we get that centered, or the lines we drew, if we get those centered through all 4 holes, will be centered. Hold it there. I'm going to put a dot through it. Got it. Dot, 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 and dot. And that's where our first hole is going to go. And you start off slow. That's why you're using a smaller bit. In case if you mess up, you can try to fix it. That. And even though our dot might not be directly on the line, that's because when I was sticking the marker through, you know, it could be up or down. Try to get the bit on the line. There's that one. That one. So we've changed bits. We're on hole number 2. Like that. Knock these burrs off so we can I hope you guys can see that. All right, holes are drilled. Bit is going back in this case. That's the hardest habit to get back into, putting those away. Very, very, very hard. All right, let's dry fit this thing real quick. Got the screws going through it. Just like it's made for it. Now, some of these mounts are made for tapered screws. See how that's concaved in there? If you're going to use a screw that's not concaved, you might need to make these holes a little bit bigger, or go get you know, a screw with a concave. These are the nuts, and hopefully you can see how they're got those spikes from the back side. These spikes will lock in. That way you can turn the screw from out here and you won't have to hold them on the back side. And as you tighten them up, it pulls them in. And we'll do that real quick just to dry fit them. Let me get it ready. All right. Our bind nut goes on the back. the screw and the washer, and what we're going to do is just draw the bind nut up into the back of the wood, and so we don't have to use the motor mount itself. I just found a washer. You don't have to have these, but you run one through the hole just like so, and then you're going to hold this down there. This is a nut with another finger, and get it started. So I got it started there. Go on, tighten it up with your fingers if you want. That's what I'm doing. And you'll notice it's starting to get tight right there. Okay, so it's getting tight. And now I've got a screwdriver on the other side. And I'm still holding it with my finger a little bit until it starts to bite in. And now you can see as I'm screwing it, it's sucking it in until those teeth, or whatever you want to call them, bind all the way in there flush. And go kind of slow, because it's slowly, you know, making itself a brand new home. You know, as you put a little torque on it, then it might squeeze in a little bit, and you can kind of see it. I'm just turning it like this. We're going to back it out. And put a washer on the other side, because the washer I picked wasn't quite big enough and it was starting to go in the wood, and we don't want that. So now we'll try it this way. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that. I should have done this setup right here first, but it's okay. We'll check it out here. Yep, because of that washer I put, it's not damaging the wood. And the bind nut is digging itself in there, and it's almost flush. That. And I kind of felt it stop right there, and that's a good place to stop. When you go ahead, when you put the motor on, then you can cinch it down a little bit more. And when we mount the motor, we might put a little glue right there just to hold it in there after it's sucked in. You know, a little insurance policy. Let's do one more. All right, we got one more setup. Got our bind nut. We've got our bolt. We're sticking with a good washer up against the plywood, and then get the bind nut in there. And I'm getting this started, and you know, I can tighten it up right here, do whatever to get it going. Then get the screwdriver. It's spinning a little bit, so I'll kind of hold it with my fingers till it gets a bite. See it going in. And we're going to call that one good for right now, because we put that extra epoxy in there at the beginning of the build. A little bit is sticking out right there, and that's what's holding this side from going down. So let's fix that. So I unscrewed it a little bit, and unscrew it until it's almost out, and then you can give it a tap and see it pushed it away. So now we just need to get it out of there, and not a whole lot of room to work, but we're making do. There it is. Now it's out. And then I've got a Dremel tool, and I'm just going to try to sand that little spot just a little bit. Just where that epoxy was up on its high side. Watch my eyes there. Maybe a hair more. The other off switch. The other off. It feels a little bit better. And then let's try the process over again. And try to find the same marks that it dug into at the beginning. We don't want to make any more. And we're going to call that one good. All right. Trying to make sure you guys can see that real good. All right, sweet. All right, we got all four in. I finished the others off camera real quick. It also says to knock this out right here for the wires of the motor. And you can see that that little punch out piece is not the whole thickness of the firewall. So we've already messed up a little bit of the wood here, which is just the nature of the business. So instead of pushing that piece up from the inside out and maybe haven't taken a chance of taking more wood with it, just knock it in like that. So now we have room for our wires, and we'll just double check our mount here. Start all these loose, you know, because these holes are not precise, like, you know, dead on accurate. So start them kind of loose, and then if one needs to tilt a little bit as they're getting tightened up, you know, that can happen, and that's fine. But we're just making sure they all go in. I mean, we still got to do the motor and all that stuff. But this way, it'll hold the bind nuts in the back of it for our next few steps of the build. And we have the holes drilled and the...
Okay, the motor's mounted. So we'll see what comes up on the next part. Maybe we'll start putting in some servos or the landing gear. We'll just see what comes up. I've thought about putting this style landing gear on there instead of the wire. So maybe we'll go about that. And if we do, we'll do that together. Well, hey, at 1,000 subscribers, somebody gets this jet. I'll mail it as soon as tomorrow. So please hit that like and subscribe and share these with your friends. And until next time, you'll see me here.